Hey guys, welcome back to That Florida Feeling. Thank you so much for joining me for another exciting episode about Florida. Thanks for joining me on my live video this morning from Crescent Beach. Never done one. Thought I would just do one. So if it sounds a little whatever, I was winging it. Got to do some things, got to try new things. But thanks for watching it. And thank you for continually amazing me with your love and support for this podcast. I really appreciate it. I'm still overwhelmed every day. Thanks for joining the Facebook group. Thanks for inviting your friends to join the Facebook group. I wanted to have a place where we could have discussions about all things Florida, about new places for people to go and sites to see, where you can drop suggestions for future episodes, where we can have polls to see what you guys are into, or, just a place where you can talk about the things that you like about this wonderful state. Also, thank you for liking and following the Instagram page. I did get fancy and created a link tree for it. So it's everything That Florida Feeling is just a click away on Linktree. I added the Spotify link to the podcast. I added my pick fair, which shows you guys some pictures from around Florida. There are a couple from Tennessee, but whatever, just ignore those. Most of them are Florida. If you don't know what pick fair is, by the way, real quick, it's a place where you can upload photos and you can sell them or people can view them in your galleries. So if you're into photography, check out pick fair. Thanks, guys, for participating in the poll on both Facebook and Instagram and telling me your favorite Publix items. I cannot believe I forgot fried chicken. So thank you. Shout out to Jan for reminding me that fried chicken is at Publix, and in fact, it's super delicious. Before I really get into the podcast, I want to give a shout out to Mystery History Podcast and Allie. It's a true crime podcast, and it is one of my favorites. They are amazing. They go really in depth in the subject and tell you things you didn't know, and even if it's a topic you've heard of, you always learn something new. So definitely shout out to Allie, who rocked it solo on the last episode. She was amazing. But definitely go check them out. All you true crime junkies, this is a podcast definitely for you. They also do have mysteries. Just go give them a listen. You'll learn something new, or you'll find something new you're into. So shout out to them. All right, guys. On to this week's episode. We already know it's about our favorite Florida grocery store, Publix. Now, I'm sure that we've all been in a Publix, and whether you love it or you're one of those weird people that hate it, they are everywhere in Florida. I used to live across the street from two of them. That's right, two of them. And they were both busy, so it was warranted having two, but it was really strange. If one didn't have it, you just walked across the street and went to the other one. But we are going to talk about the history of Publix, the founder, and of course, our favorite items from there. So to get into the podcast, I'm going to tell you a few of my favorite facts about the grocery store. Did you know that you could renew your car registration at some Publix locations? I didn't. I wish that this was near me. If you live near Plant City, Tampa, or Brandon, they do have car registration kiosks, I guess, that are in the store so that you can register your car, pick up a pub sub, and be on your way. Publix was actually only able to expand thanks to an orange grove. Apparently, it was mortgaged to get the down payment for the second Publix store. And, couldn't get more Florida than mortgaging an orange grove for a business. Did you know that Publix was the first grocery store with air conditioning? And I am so grateful that everybody else caught on to this, because in Florida, it is a must. Do you know that Publix is actually employee owned? They're not traded publicly on the stock market, and all the employees get some sort of stock share. Whether you're full-time or part-time, everybody gets shares that are just given to them for working for the company after a certain period of time. And I think that's really cool that the employees can actually say they own this and they help make it successful. Now, you're wondering about the name Publix. It actually comes from a chain of movie theaters that were going out of business when Mr. Jenkins was creating his grocery empire. He stole it from some now defunct movie theaters, which I think is really cool. I was always wondering where he got the name Publix, because it's such a weird name. Like, it's not like two things combined together. But yeah, so he got it from a movie theater. Did you know that Publix has a merchandise store? Yep, that's right. You can buy your very own chicken tender shirt. And I'll admit I do have some Publix swag. It's actually really cool. The slides, there are some slides on that store, man. I recommend them, but we'll talk about them later in the podcast. Definitely got to check out that store though. If you've ever been to a Publix, you've probably seen that they have an ATM. But did you know that they actually own that ATM? It's called a Presto, and you can be a member and you can use it for free. Or if you're not a member of the Presto network, you can use it for a really low fee. But they partner with banks and credit unions to basically have an ATM in every one of their stores. I think that's just a really cool little, like, hey, I meant to pay with cash, I don't have it, let me go to the ATM. It's literally in the store or right outside the store, depending on which kind of store you've been to. Did you know that they offer free medications in their pharmacy? You have to have a prescription, but if you have a certain prescription for certain blood pressures, diabetic, or antibiotics, you actually can get them a certain amount of supply for free. And I think that's just another way that they definitely give back to their communities. You can actually break any fresh meat, bakery, or produce package to get just the amount you want. So say you're in the bakery and I need 3 hamburger buns because I'm really weird. And if you go up to them and say, I just want 3 of these, they will give you 3 of these. They will package it in another package and they will price it for just those 3 hamburger buns, and you can definitely be on your way. And then somebody can be wondering why there's a package of 5, but you got your 3. That's what's important. And the last fact I'm going to tell you is actually probably one of the coolest. It's one I definitely think means a lot, especially in these times, is that Publix does not lay off its employees. They can actually say in their 90-year history, they have never laid off an employee. They will always find somewhere else for you to go or something else for you to do in the store, but they will not lay off an employee. All right, now that we know some really cool facts about the grocery store, let's talk about how it got started. So Publix was started in 1930 by Mr. George Jenkins. And I'm going to refer to him as Mr. George or Mr. Jenkins interchangeably. Mr. George was how he was affectionately known by his Publix family. Mr. Jenkins, of course, the proper, but they will be interchangeable through this podcast. He was actually born in Georgia on September 29th in 1907. And you could say he had the grocery store business in his blood, since his family actually ran a general store that catered to farmers in the area he was in. And he worked in that store when he was younger up until he graduated high school. And then his family and him moved to Atlanta in 1924. Now, he continued to work as he enrolled in Georgia Tech, but he never did finish his degree. He was working too many jobs. And in fact, he tried a lot of different jobs before settling on one that he liked. He tried cab driver. That didn't get far after somebody shorted him the fare. He tried shoe salesman. He didn't have much luck there. And finally, he delivered groceries for his father's store, but never actually worked for his father. He eventually went on to land a job at Piggly Wiggly as a clerk. Y'all remember Piggly Wigglies? I do. We had them in Tennessee. Little pig. All right, sorry. Moving on. But of course, he didn't stay as a clerk long before he was pulled to be a relief manager. And he was so good at being a relief manager that he became relief manager to all the stores in his area. And if you don't know what a relief manager is, basically if a manager goes on vacation, this is the person that fills in until they get back. And he would continue to do this, but then he got disenchanted. And we've all been there with jobs. You do it for so long, you're like, is this really going to be my future? So he left Piggly Wiggly and he was invited to go to Sarasota. Well, he never actually made it to Sarasota. He ended up stopping in Tampa and took a job at a Piggly Wiggly in Tampa. Of course, he did so good because he's done this before. He was promoted to the manager of a St. Pete store. He continued to grow that business and had so much success that they wanted to put him in the largest store under that owner, which was actually in Winter Haven, Florida. The business actually went really well for him. He grew it and it did so good. It was doubling, but then Florida kind of took a turn. About late 1920s, 1930, there were numerous hurricanes that came through the state. The Great Depression, of course, hit with the crash of the stock market, and the real estate bubble bust. And basically, Florida was brought to its knees. Most of the businesses went out of business or were sold to people in other parts of the country. The particular business that Mr. George was at, the Piggly Wiggly, was sold to a businessman in Atlanta. Now, of course, when you think somebody buys your company, they're going to come meet you, right? Well, this guy didn't care. It was just a money-making for him, and he didn't really care who or why or what ran his stores as long as they were making him money. So Mr. Jenkins was so upset. Sorry guys, my cat's making his debut again. So Mr. Jenkins was so upset that the new owner wasn't going to come meet him that he drove all the way to Atlanta to meet this new owner. He got there. He was greeted by the receptionist who told him that he was busy and that he would not be able to meet Mr. George for a meeting. And that would have been okay if Mr. George hadn't have heard the owner and another guy talking about golf. So you know now he knows he's being avoided, and that's, well, rude. But what did it do? It enraged Mr. Jenkins so much that he drove back to Winter Haven and began plotting how he would create his own grocery store to directly compete with this guy. He was so mad he wanted to drive him out of business. So don't ignore people. You never know what can happen. But yeah, he wanted to open his store directly to compete with this new owner of the Piggly Wigglies, and he did. He did it in 1930 when he opened his Publix food stores. And in order to create this grocery store, because of course the economy's downhill, he created 30 shares to fund his business with the help of his friends. He even got people he used to work with at Piggly Wiggly to buy into this, and of course kept some for himself. And he finally had enough money with his savings that he was able to open a new store. And he opened the first Publix with himself and only 5 employees. And he began to directly compete with the Piggly Wiggly that he had left. And it became a game of who could do better. Piggly Wiggly would offer something, and Publix would offer it better. They would change something, and Publix would change it for the better. So a pissing contest, essentially. But he prevailed. And within the first year, the Piggly Wiggly that he used to manage closed. And as the economy began to grow, so did his stores. And the store became so overwhelmed that he had to open a second Publix 5 years later on the other side of Winter Haven. And this is when he mortgaged his orange grove for a down payment. And he opened his first, not just a store, but a supermarket. He even described it as a food palace. Now the store was unlike anything anybody had ever seen in that time. He had glass and marble. He had a stucco building. He paved the parking lot. And he even had a front entrance with an electric eye automatic door opener, which was super unheard of at that time. He made sure that the store was air conditioned, which is where we got that he was the first one to do this, and people have continued this trend to today. He put up bright lights so that people could see what they were buying and see that the produce was fresh. He made wide aisles for people to be able to go past each other. He even played music for shoppers to enjoy and give them a brief, relaxing moment while they looked for their food. The dairy cases were custom and open for shopping. He also had freezers for people to buy frozen food of, which was really unheard of at that time. Stores just didn't have freezer cases. I know that most of these are features that we're used to in grocery stores today, but this is why. We can thank Mr. George and his food palace for people seeing these not as luxuries, but now as a simple necessity that you put in a grocery store. This is what people expect. He continued with these 2 stores, and they continue to grow. But he also knew that in order to succeed, he would need more than 2 stores. Okay, side note, you can actually still see the second Publix store in Winter Haven. It's right past the downtown area. It's across from a church. I've seen it. It looks small compared to what we think of for a grocery store today, but you can still see the stucco exterior. You can see the nice flooring and the big windows. And if you think back and imagine, it probably really was super nice for its time. So if you're ever in Winter Haven, for whatever reason you decide to go to Winter Haven, if you're going to Legoland or something like that, definitely go past it. I think it's a thrift store now, but there's a little plaque, and it does say that it was Mr. George's Food Palace. So if you're that into Publix, or you just want some really cool history, go check it out. It's right past the downtown area. So Mr. George, knowing that he needed to continue to grow and succeed, he set up in Lakeland. He bought out an existing company that already had stores, and he took them over. He even moved the headquarters to Lakeland, which is where they are today. Although, side note, I thought that the headquarters would be fancier than they are. I don't know, maybe that was just me. But you can see them off of the Parkway when you're getting over to 75. It's a huge building. Can't miss it. But he continued to travel around the area because he was always looking to add to his company. He always wanted to make it better. He always wanted to give the customers exactly what they needed, even if they didn't know they needed it. Now, of course, he did have a life outside of Publix, but of course, Publix was still his main focus. He did have a wife that he married in 1974, and they eventually had 7 children. He got divorced in 1974, and of course, his health began to decline. He had a stroke in 1989, but that didn't stop him from working. He still went to the stores in a wheelchair to continue his legacy. But Mr. George ultimately passed away in 1996 in Lakeland. He left his wealth to the George M. Jenkins Fund, which is a charity, and his family. And of course, his family continues to run the company today. Kind of. I'll get to that in a minute. He was well known for his love of the community and improved every community they put his store in. People everywhere knew him and referred to him lovingly as Mr. George. He also referred to his employees not as employees but as associates. He wanted them to feel that they were more than just an employee, that just to do a job. He cared for them. He wanted them to be happy. He wanted them to own part of the business because it meant that they really owned their work. And this is where the stock comes in. He took care of his workers and gave shares to his full-time employees. It was also eventually given to part-time employees. But it really was to promote the idea that they're sharing in the success of their company. And he continues to live on through his stores and his charities today. There's a number of places in Lakeland and Winter Haven in the area that are named for Mr. George. He lived and died by the philosophy, begin and the rest is easy. And that has helped to continue his legacy for this day. Now, I have a fun story about Mr. George. I never got to meet him, but I was working in Publix and I had a district manager. And she worked for him. She came up through him. And she would tell us the story about, you always make sure that the customer's happy. And she told us the story that there was a dairy clerk who had forgotten to order Cool Whip on Thanksgiving. Okay, first of all, it's Cool Whip on Thanksgiving. How do you forget that? But she told us that he called, they were still in the Winter Haven, Lakeland area. He called the warehouse and asked for a delivery. So an hour goes by and Mr. George pulls up in his Cadillac, walks in the store, throws the guy his keys, says all the Cool Whip's in the trunk, and don't you ever forget to order it again. Now, I find that to be really funny because that just proves that Mr. George, no matter how big his company grew, he always went to the stores and he always took care of them. He always taught you a lesson and made you remember things, but he was always there to help out his stores, especially to bring Cool Whip on the day before Thanksgiving to a store. So he really did care for Publix, and it's something you can still tell to this day. Okay, side note though, if you ever go into a Publix and you see a picture of Mr. George on the customer service and you think it's Walt Disney, you're not alone. They've got to be long lost twins. So next time you go in Publix, look, tell me this man does not look like Walt Disney. Okay, sorry. That was a really fun side note. I'm sorry. Every time I go in there, I'm always like, it's Walt Disney's cousin or twin or something. Okay. But Publix has continued to grow and dominate the supermarket here in Florida. In fact, it's really hard to find another supermarket here in Florida that's not Publix. I do miss Kroger's though. Sorry. Mr. George was once quoted saying, "Success is doing the little things unusually well, and success largely depends upon believing in something and doing it." And he put this into action. He expanded towards Miami, and then he expanded into the rest of the state. They have continued this as they're now in, I believe it's 7 states. So Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, North and South Carolina, and now Virginia. So Publix has still continued to grow. Who knows where they'll go next? I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually make it all the way to Texas or up towards New England. But, nothing surprises me, especially since he put this into action and people have continued to do this. And they also continue to add improvements to help their stores stay state-of-the-art, like his Food Palace, to be the best in the area, and to bring in new products. Now, they do have the standard things you look for at a grocery store, such as a bakery, a deli, produce, floral, meat, and seafood departments, but they've added the little things that you really do come to expect from Publix. And a few of their additions have actually helped them grow into some of the stores that we see today and things that we're actually used to today. So the first thing I'm going to talk about that they added, we talked about earlier, and that was the Presto ATM. They actually added it in 1982, and they have installed these ATMs at all of their Publix stores, even outside of Florida. But it's not just an ATM, it's a debit-owned network that is owned and operated by Publix. So basically they have all these other credit unions, banks that help out through this network. And I looked it up, and it is a vast network. I was really surprised. Of course, my bank's not on there. Why would they be? But, you know, whatever. But it's really cool. You can still use the ATM for a really, like, a low fee, lower than you would if you just went to another bank. But if you're in the network, it is a surcharge-free access to any of the ATMs in all the 7 states. And it really does create a nice sense of, oh, I forgot to run to the bank, but I'm already in Publix, and I forgot to get cash back. Now I can just go to this ATM that's not going to charge me an arm and a leg. And you can join this network still. If you go onto the Publix website and you look up Presto, there'll be a little thing you can fill out to get some info. I know that they charge a small fee, but other than that, that's pretty good, you know, to not pay $6 because you went to the wrong bank. Aprons. Everybody who's been in a Publix knows Aprons. It's the little kiosk where you can go and try some new recipe they put out. I think they put out 2 recipes a week. And you can, you know, you get a new idea for dinner. But did you know that Aprons is also a cooking school? Right? It's not just a kiosk, but it's a cooking school that Publix actually runs. Now, they do have the booths in the store, but they offer classes in these 11 different locations at these cooking schools. And it's some of the same stuff you make in the store. Of course, you'll see the cooking demonstrations in the stores. You can sample the product. They have the recipe cards, and they also have the little kiosk where you can buy everything you just tried. Now, the cool thing about the recipes are they are developed in-house, made by their own chefs. They're usually super easy to prepare with prepackaged or simple ingredients, and they can all be found in store. Now, the schools are located in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Virginia. Of course, Florida has the most with 8 different locations. And they offer hands-on classes to help you hone your cooking skills with these easy-to-make recipes while a real chef guides you. I do know that there's actually a store in Jacksonville. I've actually seen it. It's in the store off of San Jose Boulevard. I used to shop in the store, and you could see them giving classes. Maybe one day I'll get to take one, but it was actually really cool to see people in there, and they sold all of their, you could buy their utensils and their cooking measurements and things that really helped you learn and hone and become like, you felt like a culinary expert at some point. And so that was really cool that you can take these classes. Now, sadly, and this one really does, I'm really sad about this. I heard a rumor that they're going to pull them out of the stores. I really hope they don't. I think it's a really cool extra benefit to be able to walk into a store to get a new recipe and to try something. It really does help you out for dinner or the next dinner or whatever you're going to cook or party ideas. So I'm really sad that if that rumor's true. I really, really hope they don't pull them out of the store because I feel that this is something that definitely sets them apart from like everybody else. Publix Pharmacy is definitely another staple that we have come to see in every store, but it wasn't always common. They actually didn't open their first pharmacy in-store until October of 1986, and it was actually in Altamont Springs. Now they've become standard in a store. They're in about 90% of their stores. If you have seen a Publix without a pharmacy, please tell me. I have never seen one without a pharmacy, and I found that to be mind-blowing. So if you've ever been to one, like, hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. I want to know where this is. I feel that's so weird. But they continue to think of the community when doing their pharmacies, and they even announced in 2007 that they would offer certain free medications that include certain antibiotics, diabetic medications, and blood pressure medicines. They also have tried other things to really help people out, like is the free little clinic that was tried but replaced by what is now Baycare Telehealth. They started this in 2017. It's in some of the stores. I definitely know there's some around Lakeland and I believe Tampa. But it's a little private booth that you can go in and you can teleconference a doctor and they can write you prescriptions for minor illnesses or conditions. It's just another little feature that really helps with, for the community. Like, say you don't have time to run to the doctor, you can't get an appointment, and you're just not feeling great, you can teleconference. I think it's like $80 for the visit. It's actually not that bad. Another thing the Publix Pharmacy offers is their blood pressure machines. And you're like, okay, I've seen it. But It's their hygiene machines, and you can actually create an account, and it helps you track your blood pressure and your weight. And so it's another good way to really keep yourself healthy and focus on what you need to be focusing on. They also offer the flu shots. They're the ones that give out the $10 gift card when you get vaccinated for the flu shot. That's a pretty nice bonus. They were also the first place in Florida to offer the COVID vaccine pretty much like statewide. So that was pretty cool that they really got on and really helped the community to spread out these vaccines if people wanted them to protect themselves. And I'm sure they'll continue to do new things and continue to grow and really help out their communities. Another thing Publix has added was liquor stores. And what I thought was really interesting was that they actually had the liquor stores in the 80s, but they didn't succeed. I don't know whether it was that they didn't put them next to the stores or what. I couldn't really find a bunch of stuff out of that, but they didn't succeed the first time they tried it. So they tried it again in the early 2000s, and now you see Publix liquor stores in a lot of their stores. Of course, it's in a separate little building or off the main building in accordance to liquor laws, but they really are trying to make it a one-stop shop for anything you need. So the liquor store is a nice bonus. You can just run in and get everything you need. You can also Instacart liquor. I was amazed at that one. Okay, fun fact. Did you know that Publix actually has Starbucks kiosks now? Yes, they do. Not in all the stores, obviously, but in some of them. You can find them in 13 of the stores in Florida, and they offer a full selection of Starbucks drinks and pastries that you can enjoy while shopping. It's just another comfort you can get while in the stores. I'm going to break it to you guys, though. This is not a good substitution for a real Starbucks. I've been to one of these, and I felt that the training lacked. Sorry, Publix. One thing you guys really didn't get right here. So if you really do want Starbucks and you're going to pay the price for it, just go to a real one and bring it to Publix. Don't fight this one. Which is also funny, side note, because some of the Publixes also had their own cafes that offered coffee. I know that there's one in Knoxville, Tennessee on the University of Tennessee campus that had their own cafe, and their coffee was amazing. So maybe Publix will just start instituting their own cafes again or something. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, if you're ever lucky enough to find a Publix with a Starbucks and you're desperate, go for it. Publix also found success in opening a new type of store, the Greenwise stores. And they were more focused on nutrition. And they do have their own Greenwise brand. I'm sure if you've been to a store, you've seen it. They've replaced a lot of their own actual Publix brand with the Greenwise brand, even though it's still their brand, in their actual brand. It's healthier. It's free from dyes, hormones. Most of them are organic. And it's just really a way to not get on the health trend, but to really look out for people who really are on the health trend. It's another option. They did have their own stores. They are sort of similar to Whole Foods. They've gone through some changes as they've grown through this brand. The first Greenwise store was actually built in 2007 in Palm Beach Gardens. They, of course, opened a few more, but then they started incorporating them into hybrids. And they did this in a lot of the Tennessee ones I know that they opened. It was called the Sienna model, and they offered Publix regular brands, but they offered a lot of the Greenwise organic. It was like 50-50. And so they did to incorporate this, and I think that they're still incorporating a lot of these in their stores. But they are continuing to grow their actual Greenwise brand as well, and they're opening new and better standalone stores as of 2017. The first one in 2017 was built on the Florida State University campus in Tallahassee. Side fact, the first Publix that was ever built on a campus was on the University of Tennessee, not Florida State. Okay, sorry. I know you're probably wondering why that matters, but don't let facts get in the way of a good story. Trust me, it's a thing. All right, moving on. Publix has had many successes, and you've seen them continue to grow. Obviously, they've grown because they've had success, but they've also gone through a few bumps in their growth. And I'm sure if you've lived in Florida or vacationed here for a long time, some of these are going to sound familiar, and you're going to be like, yeah, they used to do that. So we're going to talk about some not so well Publix things. Have you ever seen a Publix Sabor or heard of one? They had 7 of these closer to South Florida. and there was one in Kissimmee. And they opened these as more of a way to cater to Hispanic Americans living in Florida. The staff was bilingual. They actually had their own cafes. And having been into a Sabor, it was such a cool place. You could get the coffee was amazing. Okay, so, sorry. And they had a wider selection of Hispanic foods, especially homemade in the deli. And I wish that these had stuck around. These were just a really cool place, especially within the community. They've since closed them all or merged with other stores. But if you ever got to go to the one in Kissimmee or South Florida ones, you know what I'm talking about. Have you ever heard of Publix Direct? No? Don't be surprised. The only reason I knew about this was that I had a grocery manager who ran some of this in the early 2000s. Publix Direct was Instacart before Instacart was Instacart. They would actually deliver groceries to the customers, and they even had a distribution center out of Pompano Beach. If you were a customer in Broward, certain parts of Miami-Dade, or Palm Beach counties, you could access this service from Publix. Now, it only lasted a couple years. There was low interest in the service, and it was a little bit ahead of its time. They discontinued it, and then they tried again with Publix Curbside in 2010. Again, that really didn't take off until Instacart came along and partnered heavily with Publix in 2016. And now you can get your groceries delivered to you. You can pick them up in certain stores. I know Lake Merriam in Lakeland was really good on this. They had their own little, like when you go to a store and you see like this is for curbside pickup only. They definitely had they did a lot of this. You'd see people coming and picking them up all the time, and not just Instacart. So it's grown over the time, and it's had its ups and downs, but now we have the Instacart, and so that's definitely become a good success for them now. Have you ever heard of Publix Pix? That's Publix Pix, P-I-X. And if you haven't, don't feel bad. The only reason I ever knew about this is because there was one in Tennessee. One. And it was where I used to live. And this was Publix's attempt at having its own gas station and convenience stores in Florida, Georgia, and Tennessee. Now, obviously, they didn't fare well. They did not do well at all. Literally, there was one in Tennessee. It was really nice. I remember going in it. It was always clean. People were nice, but they just didn't make it. They sold the ones in Florida off to the Circle K's, and the one in Georgia to another company. The one in Tennessee just closed. And Publix did retain its Pix rights in case it ever decides to do this again. But could you imagine if they tried this again with pub subs? A gas station with a Publix sub? Could you imagine? Come on, Publix, get with it. Standalone pub shops. Let's go. Okay, sorry. Got a little into that one. Did you know that Publix actually owned a restaurant? That's right. It owned Crispers. It actually invested in the restaurant chain Crispers in the early 2000s, 2002 to be exact. And the restaurant was more health conscious. They eventually bought the whole chain 5 years later in 2007. And they ran it for a good time until they started seeing lower profits and sold off the remaining to health food concepts. Now, Crispers actually still exists today. If you've ever been in the Lakeland area, you probably have seen one. There's only 4 today, but it always looked really good. It's a salad sandwich kind of place. It really is a healthy concept, but it looks really, really good. I wish more had survived near us. Now, Publix has had its up and down in its 90 years, but they have so many things that still work for them today that just keep us coming back, even though it's just a grocery store. They offer some great services in their store departments that other stores don't really compete with. I know a couple have tried. You'll see new things being rolled out in other competitors, but Publix really has the edge on this one. Of course, you've had a pub sub, right? Sweet tea, right? Best thing ever. What about the wings and the fried chicken? I totally forgot about it, but it is amazing. And their hot bar. If you've never gone up to their hot bar at lunch, go. I didn't even know you could get fried shrimp until the other day. And they have the lunch meals where it's like $5 and you get a couple pieces of whatever meat and some tater wedges. Man, dude, it's great. And it's not as, it's not as, I don't know. I just love it. Did you know that some stores actually have a Chinese bar? Right? And they're rotated out, so they have different things each day, week, something like that. They have a salad bar. They have a huge salad bar at the one in Largo. They also have an olive bar, They pretty much have anything and everything you could want. And they've even added specialty cheese shops into a lot of the stores. So really, like, anything you're looking for, Publix is going to be there to help you out. Okay, I got to tell you about my favorite thing, though. Have you ever had a maple ice donut? Did you even know you could get a maple ice donut at Publix? Because you can. But you don't get the regular donut. You get the little cinnamon fry thing, and you get them to put maple ice. Oh my gosh, you guys have got to try that. It is just fantastic. Sushi. Publix has some really good sushi, especially on Wednesdays when it's $5 and you can get your sushi fix. And these are just some of the great offers that they give you. They just offer in their stores that are daily. This is not something that they do every now and then. This is every day you go in there. You can get a pub sub. You can get sushi. You can get your favorite donut. You can get your favorite cake. You can get all of your favorite stuff. And it's just really something that has helped set them apart over the years. One of the things I actually really like about Publix is their meat department. They have a huge selection of pre-seasoned meats. So if I go in and I have no idea what I want to do, I can walk up to this case and they've got all these things pre-made, and I just have to pick out the one that looks good and go home and cook it. I love the meatloaf grillers and the stuffed peppers. And if you ever try their potato skins, you will not be disappointed. All these are available in the meat department. I know this sounds really weird, potato skins, but you got to try them. And they also season whatever meat you want. Like, say you find a steak and you like their steakhouse blend. They'll put it on there for you. All you got to do is ask. And one department I feel that completely gets overlooked at Publix is definitely the produce department. Yeah, they have great produce. They really do. And it's usually at a really great low prices. But they also have an awesome selection of in-house cut fruits. Their parfaits, their leafy salads. You can get a fruit bowl to go. They'll custom make fruit salads for you. But just their everyday selection is just amazing. Side note, I really wish they would bring back the caramel apple parfait. Whatever, thank you. And then another hidden gem in Publix is really just the Publix brand itself. They have a lot of good items just under their name brand. With low prices, but they don't cut quality. Publix milk, they have their own dairy. They actually have their own dairy farm and process their own milk and bring it into the stores. That's another really cool thing that sets them apart. The bakery, they make their own cakes and they decorate them, and the icing is made in-house and it's just delicious. And these are things that we talked about in the Facebook group, and these are the things that you guys told me you really like. But this really is what sets Publix apart. Like, you've seen the meme. I don't ask what flavor the cake is. I asked where you got it from. Is it a Publix cake or not? And that's a real thing. That's what's helped them grow over all these years. Another really cool thing about Publix is that their slogan is make shopping a pleasure. And they really do offer that. I worked at a Publix where a guy brought in a pot of gumbo, and we weren't really sure what was going on, but it comes to find out he had bought all of his ingredients at Publix and he didn't like them. And the store manager apologized and refunded every ingredient that was in that gumbo, because that's their policy. They want it to be exactly what you want. If it doesn't taste right, bring it back. I can honestly say I have taken a bite of a pub sub and it was not what I wanted, and they refunded me all of my money for it. And that's the great thing about them, is that they want you to be happy. They want you to leave satisfied, and they want you to come back and know that you're going to get exactly what you paid for. Another cool thing that Publix offers is that they actually do catering. You can find catering and event planning in some of the stores. And yes, you can get your event catered, from hot chicken to pub subs to a full menu that has chefs and servers for your entire event. You can plan your wedding, parties, or any kinds of occasion with Publix. Now, I talked about this earlier, but if you really love Publix, are you willing to show it? Are you going to buy their merchandise? Because they have their own website. It's actually 363green.com. And you can truly show your love for Publix. You ever wanted a shirt with a chicken tender sub on it? Get it. Green slides that say Publix across the top? Wear them. That coffee mug to drink your Publix coffee out of? They have that too. And they even have their own mask. You can buy, when the pandemic hit, they definitely put out their own mask. And they really did get behind the community. But it's really cool that you can go and you can buy these things. They even have some of the stuff with the teams on it that they support. So I think it's the Falcons, the Jaguars, maybe the Dolphins. Yeah. Tampa Bay? And Tampa. I think they have Tampa Bay. I don't have to look back on the website. But they also still do their stuff with the with their teams. I think the only two they don't support in the area is the Titans and the Panthers. But yeah, you can definitely get all your Publix merchandise there. They have ornaments, mugs, shirts, slides, hat, watches, anything and everything to show your Publix love to the world. And yes, I can say I've ordered some stuff off there, and yes, I proudly wear my Publix shirt. Okay? Another cool thing you can find in stores is the scales. Now, I'm sure we've all walked into Publix and we've seen these big green scales, and people weigh them, or you'll see people weighing their luggage on them. I have actually seen that. But it's just another cool feature that Publix has, and it's something you really expect when you go into their stores. And yes, they're in every store. It's just something that Mr. Jenkins started that he really wanted to continue, and it's, it really does let you do everything in one place. And he started the idea that he really wanted to take care of people, not just the community, but the people that worked for him. And they're just as important as Mr. Jenkins was himself to the stores. Now, the store was founded with the philosophy that customers and associates should be treated with dignity and respect. And the associates are encouraged to do the same. They are encouraged to express their ideas that could make it better, voice concerns over things that don't seem right or that could be better. They're given all the training to succeed and even encouraged to move up in the company. Now, Mr. Jenkins started the idea that if the environment was right, then it would attract the best people, give them the desire to serve, and help the business to grow no matter what. And this has served him for 90 years. Now, the company is employee-owned. It is not traded for in the stock market. The associates can earn stocks based on the hours they work, but you can also buy stocks during certain times of the year. They are paid out quarterly in dividends. And this just kind of adds to the benefits. They do have the benefits for part-timers. They added this on later. You can earn stock after working 1,000 continuous hours. And the company still wants to continue the tradition that Mr. George started of taking care of its employees. He wanted to commit to taking care of them, so in turn they will take care of customers. I remember hearing a story when I worked there in the training that Mr. George had an employee, and the employee's car broke down, and he couldn't make it to work, and he was really upset, and so he told Mr. George. So Mr. George went out and bought him a car and gave it to him, and told him, now you have a way to get to work. I expect you to be at work. And someone asked him why he did that. And he said, well, if you take care of people, they will take care of you. And that is an absolutely great business motto, especially in these days. And I feel that really is why when you walk into Publix and you see people happy, yes, there are rough days. Yes, customers can be absolute assholes. But at the end of the day, you're still taken care of. You know you have a job. You know that it is secure, and that it will be there. And so that really is what helps make people happy when you see people at Publix. And I've been asked when I worked there, what do they do to make you so happy? Nothing. They pay well. They had benefits. It wasn't that bad of a place to work. It really did really well to create a family culture. I actually miss one of my old Publix stores because you really do bond as a family. And I asked a couple of my Publix friends when I was doing this podcast, like, hey, do you want to add anything about Publix? And one of my good friends who I still talk to this day said, yeah, I want to say that I miss it. I miss the camaraderie. I miss the fact that we were a family. I miss that, we were a dysfunctional family, but we came together, we served the customers, we never got complaints, and we didn't have fake smiles on our faces because every day we wanted to be there. And that really is Publix. You always felt appreciated, and I can honestly say that I got lucky. I know that a lot of stores probably aren't like that. In fact, I know some of them aren't. But I feel like Mr. Jenkins' quote that he said about the stores and to his employees or associates is really the way you have to look at it. And he was quoted as saying, Publix will be a little better place or not quite as good because of you. And that's true, especially when they gave it into the hands of the employees. They made the ability to have their own success, by giving them the ability to say, hey, I own this store and I want to make it better. And that's really also where they get their customer service from. And everybody knows that Publix is known for their customer service. You walk in the store, you're immediately greeted by everybody that sees you. In fact, they even have a rule that we were taught in training that was 10 foot, 10 second rule. You have to greet everybody within 10 feet of you or within 10 seconds of seeing them. And that shows the customers that you're there to help them and that you care and that they don't feel like they're bothering you when they ask you something. Now, I do have a funny story about this. I was working in the grocery department one day, and a lady walked around the corner, and I went to greet her, and she stopped me, and she said, "Please don't. I've been greeted so much that I just don't want to hear it." And I found that to be so funny because that meant that everybody in the store was doing their job. I had a manager who used to hide at the end of the aisle and watch people walk down, and if you did not say hi to them, he would immediately retrain you on the 10 feet, 10 second rule. And, you know, he still works for the company, and I'm sure whatever store he's in is succeeding because of this. But that customer service is really what does also set Publix apart. And it really does help to create the regulars that you saw every day, or you become a regular at a store yourself. You feel at home, and you know exactly what you're going to get. And they also do this by setting up the stores kind of the same way so that if you're in any other Publix, it's pretty easy to find what you're looking for. If not, there's always an associate there to help you. They'll walk you to the product and they'll make sure it's exactly what you need. They go out of their way to make you happy with your experience there. Now, saying all this, no, Publix did not sponsor me on this, although if they did, I would totally take that. Publix will continue to be a staple in Florida, and it's slowly becoming one in other states. They will continue to grow and evolve with changing times as they offer new items and new services at their stores. They even offered valet parking at one of the stores I used to shop at. I was pretty shocked at that one. Maybe it'll become a thing, who knows? But they keep trying these new things to keep people happy and to continue to live out Mr. George's dream. He gave the stores to the people and watched them grow, and they have continued that trend today. Now, we can learn a lot from Mr. George on how to treat customers and associates alike with dignity and respect, and he understood that treating people he understood that if you did not treat people correctly, they would not come back. He was quoted as saying, "Never let making a profit stand in the way of doing the right thing." And as long as Publix continues those practices, making the killer subs, the best fried chicken, the best sweet tea, the decadent cakes, then they're going to be around for a really long time. So, do you want a pub sub now? Maybe some fried chicken? I do. So the next time you go into Publix, try something new. Get one of your favorites. But what you shouldn't do is you shouldn't be a Florida man, because there are so many Florida man stories that come out of Publix. Let me tell you, I had no shortage of ones to choose from. But today's Florida man story comes to us from 2018 out of Vero Beach. The man was seen punching cars and kicking trash cans, all while screaming, "I only had one beer." Well, was it a really big beer? He was eventually arrested wearing only basketball shorts that were around his ankles. I guess that's considered wearing them. And told police he only had one beer and he only wanted a little bit of pot. So remember that while Publix has a great beer selection, guys, everything in moderation. Don't be that man. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode on Publix. I hope you've learned some more about your favorite grocery store and maybe even found something new to try. Email me with any suggestions for future topics. I'm always open to them. Please like or subscribe or follow or whatever you're supposed to do now for this podcast so that you can keep up with the new episodes. If I can ask one more thing from you amazing people who have been so kind to me so far, is that you go to Apple and you leave a review for the podcast. And not just the 5 stars, although I do want the 5 stars, but a written review. Apparently, the more written reviews you have, the more likely people are to see your podcast. I would appreciate it so much, guys. Thank you for everything. Now, go enjoy your pub sub and your sweet tea on the beach. And of course, that's your daily dose of sunshine.